Listen to the Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko deliver a moving speech as he presented to President Bassirou Deeomaye Faaye Senegal's Vision 2050 blueprint on the Tuesday of October 14, 2024, a speech in which he described the blueprint as an ambitious and hopeful political and economic guide that will guarantee a just, prosperous and economically thriving Senegal by the year 2050. Excellency Mr. President of the Republic, ladies and gentlemen ministers of the Secretary of State, ladies and gentlemen ambassadors and all diplomatic corps combined, ladies and gentlemen presidents of employers' organizations, trade organizations, consular chambers and chambers of trades, ladies and gentlemen directors general, representatives and financial and social partners, ladies and gentlemen representatives of religious and customary authorities, ladies and gentlemen representatives of political parties and civil societies, dear guests, I believe that our talented artists who have just presented have practically summarized the day that brings us together today. There are moments in the life of a nation that transcend immediate challenges, moments when collective ambition takes precedence over particular interests. Today, Mr. President of the Republic, ladies and gentlemen, what unites us today is the vision of 2050 for Senegal, and the culmination of a long fight that began a little over 10 years ago. The refusal of poor governance, injustice and arbitrariness within the administration. It then transformed into a solid, ambitious and progressively hopeful political project. The Senegalese people voted for it on March 24, 2024, by the clear choice made on President Bassirou Deeomaye Faaye for the Supreme Magistracy. If we opposed with resilience for so many years, it is because as convinced patriots we were aware and worried about the ravages, the bad choices, the bad practices of our governing elites since independence on our country. At the time of the assessment, the observation was that of an economy marked by decades of dependence and bad governance, where opportunities for the youth, women and local businesses have often been sacrificed for the benefit of personal interests. Excellency Mr. President of the Republic, you have materialized your attachment to transparent and virtuous governance of public affairs since your transfer of power by conducting audits, including the audit of public finances, whose conclusions that we presented a few days ago revealed the easily culpable seriousness of the outgoing regimes, the structural fragilities of the Senegalese economy, independence from external resources and raw materials, a private sector that is too limited as well as an administrative governance that is often inefficient and weighed down by corruption. After this courageous exercise of messages from the reference situation and truth to the Senegalese people and our partners, here we are again before you to present the new benchmark for our public and social policies. Mr. President of the Republic, let us recall that you were elected on the basis of a programmatic offer entitled, The Project for a Sovereign, Just and Prosperous Senegal. As soon as you took office, you were kind enough to do us the honor of entrusting us with the exciting mission of operationalizing the innovative ideas that you defend, for a qualitative and profound rupture. For you, It was about laying the foundations of a systemic transformation through sustainable solutions that were not in the past thought of, in the mode of the word fast-track, but which are based on a long-term vision that transcends political divisions to rebuild Senegal on solid and sustainable foundations.
Qui transcende les clivages politiques pour refonder le Sénégal sur des bases solides et durables.
The design team, composed of experts from the Prime Minister's office and the Ministry of Economy, Planning and Cooperation, was immediately set up under the direction of the Minister of Economy, Planning and Cooperation and the Minister Secretary General of the government under my supervision. To this team was added the expertise of the performance firm, which in a patriotic spirit came to offer its contribution to this phase of developing the benchmark. This working group has given its body and soul without respite during these last 4 months to organize retreats, to achieve the results that bring us together today. The choices for developing this document reflect the strong desire of His Excellency the President of the Republic to trust local expertise on the one hand, and to further involve the national private sector in any definition and execution of public policies and programs. The strategic diagnosis that emerged from this work for our country could be summed up in 4 big words. Our model does not create value, an average growth of barely 0.4% of GDP, governance that does not promote the emergence of 10 companies per 10,000 inhabitants in Senegal, compared to 500 per 10,000 in Morocco and 709 per 10,000 in Singapore, an active but unproductive population, 80% are workers, traders or artisans. The private sector generates half as many jobs as the public sector. An inequitable social model, 4 out of 10 Senegalese are poor, and on the Human Development Index, we are ranked 169th out of 192. In short, to simply put it, our country is suffering. This vicious circle of dependency and underdevelopment has kept us on the edge of the virtuous paths that we have been trying to take in recent decades. Our experts will come back to this in more detail during their presentation. Unfortunately, we know that we can no longer go back, but we can make a new start. Start from now on and take a completely new path, freely chosen, shared and assumed. This is the high and noble ambition set by His Excellency the President Bassirou Deeomaye Faaye, and to achieve it, we will no longer do as before. Running from one reform to another, from one project to another, touching on everything, often leaving here and there a taste of unfinished business, and always in electoral haste and the dictates of the next mandates. We have taken the gamble of adopting a new development model in the long term, based on the one hand on a strategic state that will greatly promote the development of competitive sectors, beautiful territories via the end, with epicenter cities and a strong national private sector. How can we achieve this? Our approach is based on a systemic transformation that of course includes greater accountability of our fellow citizens here and in the diaspora. Like the economies that have taken off, we will develop a few solid growth engines that we will rely on to create a competitive economy that is a guarantee of a sovereign Senegal, just and prosperous. We will be there by presenting to you the tree that symbolizes and synthesizes our vision of 2050. Here is the baobab, the national emblem. 4 main parts make up this majestic tree familiar in our landscapes: roots, a trunk, branches and fruits. These, ladies and gentlemen, are the four strategic axes of Senegal's national transformation agenda. Our baobab offers strong roots that represent good governance and African commitment. The strong trunk of the baobab represents optimal planning and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, the branches provided will represent our human capital, of quality, and guarantee of social equity. It is the fruits finally that represent our option to build a competitive economy. A line of each of these acts of these axes, which will be detailed to you shortly, constitutes a pillar on which we can rely to arrive in a sovereign Senegal, just and prosperous. The new development strategy for the next 25 years, thanks to the scenario of the rupture scenario that we propose, should therefore lead in the long term to reaping the fruits of our baobab. A sovereign Senegal, just and prosperous, is a new development trajectory. These are growth engines in full expansion. It is finally a new economic map and new corridors. Mr. President of the Republic, distinguished guests, I just have to give way to our experts to provide you with more details on the new benchmark. The presentation will be in 3 stages. The diagnosis that will be introduced by Mr. Chief Director of Planning at the Ministry of Economy, Planning and Cooperation. The vision for 2050 by Mr. Victor Ndai of the Performance Cabinet, the 5-year breakdown and the implementation framework by Mr. Souleymane Diallo, Director General of Planning and Economic Policies at the Ministry of Economy, Planning and Cooperation. Then will follow the panel that will allow a few discussants to give the impression and a representation of the government, and to possibly respond to some questions. We would also like the panel to take place in the national language or to switch from one language to another, so that it is as inclusive as possible and so that as many Senegalese as possible can understand the issues of this day. Thank you for your kind attention.